Greetings and welcome to the Dracovin Empire, everybody! Are you ready to dive into Golarion once more, the world of the Pathfinder role-playing game system? I hope you are, because we're going to be heading to Casmeron, the continent and country of Vudra. I, your host and guide, Pantis Adventure Dracovin, is going to leave out my hand for you. Take it! Take my hand! Grab it as we open up the gateway and travel across the multiverse to Vudra in Casmeron once more. Remember to, of course, tip your guide here with liking, subscribing, ringing the bell on the YouTube side of things as we plane shift to Golarion once more. We've arrived in Casmeron, in Vudra, Impossible Kingdoms. A strange, an interesting place with many stories of hundreds of microcultures. Let's learn about it. Where else can I dive deeper into this information? Where might be the sources of information? Where can we look up things to learn more about this place's interesting history and culture? Well, of course, the Inner Sea World Guide and campaign settings from 1st edition are great places to look. But if you want to look in 2nd edition, the Impossible Lands give you some information. And I will highly recommend, as one of my main sources, the Agents of Edgeworth Adventure Path, get the second one. 60 feet under. It has a good multiple-page article on Vudra as a whole that gives a lot more details from what you get from the other books. It is the best of the sources, I can say, and one I recommend most of them all. Alright, so let's head to Vudra, and we're here in, I'm going to butcher its name, Radripel, the City of Arches. We've arrived here on the Matra River. Oh, what a beautiful place in Rapidra. Well, now that we're in Vudra, what is this kind of place? Well, we're in the peninsula, the basically subcontinent on southeastern Casmeron, and has an area that's nearly the size of Bastion. That's why Casmeron is such a bigger continent. It is home to the Vudrani, an ethnicity of humans known through the Gazetteers. The Impossible Kingdoms of Vudra is just that in some ways. Impossible. If you would look at it individually, it consists of hundreds of smaller kingdoms, each under a larger monarchy, a network of countless microcultures that comes together into one larger culture as a whole. A land of natural beauty, strange various cultures, wealth, occult magic. That is Vudra. Land, water, jungle. A physical embodiment of the goddess Vudrati, who said to sleep under the land here. So, yes, hundreds of these Mahajanapadas, basically semi-independent countries, kingdoms, each ruled by a Raja. And these in turn serve the Mataraja, the current one being Mataraja Rajeshwar. Basically these emperor-like figures descended from the original one, Kibensale, who united the nation. There has been contact with the Vudra in the Inner Sea region that has come more directly, especially through the island of Jalaraman, which has been descended from a basically Vudrani colonists. So there, we have an idea of this area, a network of these kingdoms that work generally together. Sort of. Anyway, now that we're here, we should learn a little bit about the history of this region. And the history is important to look at, because it tells us a lot about what it is. Its history, and it matches basically Golarion as a whole. It's told by sages and by the goddess Lika. According to the account, the goddess Vudravati walked across Golarion. She courted twin brothers Obari and Umbral. That's two oceans. She took both as lover, but they were jealous of each other, and Vudravati feared they would kill each other and wreak havoc across the world, so he separated them until they could reconcile. She laid between them and went to sleep, her body forming the land of Vudra. She birthed children of both Obari and Umbral while in this slumber, who were believed to be the Vudrani people of today. So they basically put into account that they've been existed as long as any of the other continents and places. There could be some exaggeration to this, but we know that basically during the Age of Destiny, new civilizations formed city-states. The early Mahajanpadas, especially in the Davala River Basin. And there was endless wars that strained the resources, ravaged across Vudas, until basically Iori's ascension drew the entire continent's attention and respect. Iori, being one of their primary deities, we'll talk about their gods, basically brought an end to the endless war between these small kingdoms. So by the middle 300s AR, Vudra was culturally united, but politically split among these hundreds of kingdoms of varying degrees of independence. So basically, a lot of battles, Iori's ascension united them all in one culture. They're still small independent kingdoms. They're not warring as much. They're generally speaking more at peace. Doesn't mean we don't have battles, but a lot of things has basically calmed down in the region. Then the spawn of Rovagug called Kothgaz, the Dance of Disharmony, came upon the region and wrought destruction. The legendary psychic Vani Tapaki led the defense of the land, channeling the collective will of countless psychics, occultists, sorcerers, common people in a battle that cost 1 million Vudrani lives. The hero priest cast the spawn of the ocean, boiled it, weakened to the point that a creature's heart could be extracted. The heart was cut into 101 pieces, and not all are still to be found in Vudra. The result of this was Vanipati lost their power, fell to weakness. The spawn was dead, countless were dead, but there was in the wake of this disaster, basically, there was a unity that was coming over the land. A unity that, well, would take some time still. 2 centuries later, in 530 AR, the jungle princess, Cha, nearly completed Vudra's unification until the prince Kiban Sal, who claimed to be a descendant of Vantatati, decapitated Chaya to expose a Rakshasa scheme to install her as their puppet. Basically, the Rakshasa planned to conquer all of Vudra. So then he instead declared himself Maharaja and founded Inpata, current capital of Vudra. He established a powerful centralized government through political mastery. He went over to the magical realm of Nex, negotiated the settlement of Jalraman. He did many great things. His death in 597 AR. At that time, Vudra was one of the most powerful empires in Golarion, and his descendants have held the title of Maharaja in the ensuing millennia since then. So, he came in claiming to be a descendant of the great hero, psychic, who helped defeat the spawn, got rid of this Rakshasa puppet that almost united the country, united himself, created the Vudra we know today. Following Kiban Sal's example of demonstrating international strength, Maharani Sitavati established a treaty with Kelish in 1490 AR, which has kept them generally at peace since then. In 2187, Maharaja Kumarkal established trade relations with Tianzi. In 2822, the Vudrani returned to Jalraman, wrestled control of the island from the Archlords of Nex, and established a permanent colony in the Inner Sea region. Go see my Jalraman video for stuff on that. In 4275, rogue occultists tried and failed to replicate Vantipapati's psychic channeling, causing a tsunami to strike the eastern coast that killed tens of thousands. And when Eridan died in 4606, the retreating oceans exposed a land bridge connecting southern Vudra to remote islands filled with fissures that unleashed thousands of horrible aberrations. Since then, the Manjampadas established a tenuous fortified front that has held desperately for the last 100 years against these thousands of horrible aberrations that have spilled forth from below the ground. Pleasant that was. The great explorer Selmus Foster of the Pathfinder Society blazed a trade route across Absalom, from Absalom to Vudra in 4320. He perished 10 years later, and the island of Bopan, which continues his voyage to the east. House Arcona of Corvosa became a major trading concern between Avasti and Vudra after their final gamble of sending a trading vessel in 4558, dubbed the Reprieve, provided more profitable than wise trades. Their opponents continued to send ships until 4708. Reasons, go check out I just did that. And Rajput Vij Shah Hushan, a necromancer, constructed the Palace of Ivory Bone in 4465. Yeah, that was a pleasant thing. And in 4465, the Rajas finally defeated him and razed his jungle stronghold in 4505. That's the thing that's happened. The horrible, horrible things there. Let's talk about the regions. There are 9 regions that divide the Vudrani environment. So, the 9 geographic regions are the Cradle, the Prime Jungle, the Divine Garden, Falling Mountains, Golden Basin, Narhi Desert, Open Bridge, Western Ghats, and Wide Water. Let me talk a little bit about each of them. I definitely would recommend Agents of Edgeworth if you want to dive in each individually. The Cradle being the historic Vudrani center, where the goddess of mighty rivers, Devala, nursed Uji Vudrani culture, which is still revered today, and sustained life there. It is basically also has a section called the Plains of Conflict, where there's a lot of ancient battlegrounds. Yeah, a lot of ancient ruins are in this area, dot the plateau. There's the underground labyrinth of Kirabad, haunted by ghosts of the Age of Destiny. The ruined Naga city of Sampadabad, the largest city in the region, the independent port of New Vedigard, was reconstructed over the last 200 years after a massive earthquake. It has roads that connect directly to Vudra's capital of Indapada. I'm sorry if I butcher any of these names. The Crying Jungle, the Bag Shahi River, flows from the Jahar Mountains to the Emerald Ocean, and these are some of the densest jungles in Kazmar. It stretches endlessly, hoping entangled roots, impenetrable tree cover, stretches of rainforest having countless animals, insects, plants. From the lost Maharajas of Koyadesh to the jungle-choked capital city of Jayat Vat, the region has life and trade. Half-elves, humans, Ratians, Ratfolk, Serpentfolk, Vanaras, Vishkanya all make the jungle their home. Even Rakshasas and Nagas openly rule some Mahajapadas here in the region. Sikari is the most primal and remote part of the Crying Jungle. It's Mahajapada. Trees towering hundreds of feet in the air, cliffs that drop far down into the lowlands. So yeah. And Janspur Lake is the heart of these regions. The Divine Garden is a sacred ground. It's where deities and heroes gods descended to walk among mortals and shed their blood. Thousands of temples and academies dot the countryside, leading up to the Plateau of Gods. The port city of Sumadhadra is an important center of trade and popular entry point to Vudra from people from TNZ. And an entire region restricts the slaughter of animals for food in honor of the bull god, Gilata, whose avatar is the form of a massive white bull that roams the land. Very divine region there. And this is also where the necromancer created the House of Ivory and Bones, constructed from stolen sacred elephant graveyard, the bones of it creating undead and skeletal elephants and undead laborers, and, his spirit still haunts. The Falling Mountains, separate from the rest of the region by the Posen Loha Parbat Mountains. Its southern steppes face gentle rainfall, making them ideal for growing tea. Chalya is the most accessible city from the Cradle. Its pagodas and ashrams draw students from across Vudra. It is a high concentration of Garudas, an avian people that billed themselves the enemy of Nagas. And one of them, a monk, basically formed a small cult that still looks to him today. Even though he might not be a deity, he has still worship. And Wendigos and Yetis can be found in some of the deeper mountains. Yep. And the region there is a little inhospitable in some ways, with very deadly storms and rock slides, lava flows, earthquakes. The Golden Basin. Many Mahajapandas compete to build the most elaborate palaces and castles, extravagant monuments and temples, gathering the wisest sages, most talented musicians, and nothing can hold the complexity, beauty, ever-evolving architecture within Vudra's capital in Pada. This is where the capital is, the Golden Basin. The capital's design has a Maharaja's elevated sprawling palace at the center. So yeah, beyond the capital city, the territory is known as this sacred soil, houses some of the wealthiest Mahajapadas, and boasts several rice paddies, wheat fields, mangoes, guava orchards, making a bread basket for Vudra, under the watchful eyes of Raj Hermath. A massive memorial to Vantapati, called the Devi, stands on the island in the Kalyan River, where she confronted Kovazgas. The Nahari Desert contains the hardiest of Manjampadas in Vudra, a vast desolate land of desert, primarily irrigated by the Hig River, a swift-flowing body of water that vanishes into a enormous hollow in the earth hundreds of miles south from its headwaters. The mile-wide sinkhole has attracted outlaws to form a city called Gad Badagat at the edge. Other than there, the region's few cities occupy rare oases or regions of clean water discovered by thousands. Japrini is the largest of the desert Mahajapadas, and its capital, Gazetteer, is surrounded by 4 concentric brick walls. Basically, there are then creatures in the desert which can be very dangerous things. Linorms, corrupted dragons, other kinds of monsters. Open bridge. We could include these here. The century-old land bridge that connects Vudra and the archipelago to the southern tip. The region was initially named Open Bridge in the hopes that the receding ocean would open a path to the southern Mahajapadas to explore the remote islands more easily. Instead, curious scouts could do more than chart the coastlines, because armies of aberrations emerged from the earth. Yeah. The far city of Dalangajar currently occupies the former site of a small coastal town left landlocked by the receding waters. It's the de facto capital of this burgeoning Manjampada. Basically, yeah. Basically, there are those that have flocked to the forts eager to retake the lands, fight against these things. Lines of elephant cavalry carry supplies, and aid in constructing walls across the peninsula. And nearly every Mahajampada as the nearby Mahajapas put everything into drawing the line of stone, basically. The nearby ones ready to fight. And the defensive line holds. The Western Ghats is a rocky and unfriendly coastline that rises starkly into the Jodar Mountains. It was originally settled and tunneled by ratfolk. It's still generally isolated, and construction of the sea-bound road between cities of Golquila and Urk-Hurl, basically the trade route between them has opened up at March. Countless ships race across the Bittral Sea, their crews seeking trade from dozens of ports nestled in the Western Ghats. So, yeah. And the wide waters is the final one. This is the most fertile lands in Vudra and lies along the Matra River, the enormous waterway flowing westward in the Umbral Ocean. Productive Majampadas along the Matra export not only food, but textiles, clay, other materials provided by the river's bounty. Floods along there are common, primarily during wet seasons, but they renew the land rather than devastate. So, there's a basic look at the region as a whole. Alright, let's talk about who rules the land here. We can talk about this individual here, our current Maharaja, Rakshwar. So yes, Rajwar is currently supreme power. They seize control, basically as the eldest child of the previous Maharaja, announcing their name and identity with a grace and show of personality. Basically, they showed themselves off. Their rule is without dispute now. They survived a bloody scramble for the throne in which they proved themselves the singular most talented psychic of the group and a dedicated practitioner in occult magics. A big thing here in Vudra. Since taking the throne, they've actually given birth to several of their heirs without any mention of the children's other parent. So basically, we only know the one parent of these heirs. Yeah. This basically leads rumors of the children's unexplained origins, that Rakshwar is actually an avatar of the divine. Yeah, there's a little bit of things about that. So, it's an interesting thought. Let's talk about the people of Vudra. Because there are many people living there that we can talk about. The Vudran people have a reputation for being consummate exaggerator embellishers, a trait that would make them unbearable not for their constant good cheer and charisma. Besides the Vudrani humans, the Kellish people makes their home there to a degree. Ivorians, Cambians, particularly Fault Spawns, Spike Spawns, and Beast Brood. Vanaras, Ophidian, Vishkanyas, Rudas, Rat Folks, the Rhino-headed, Kashiris, Curse-twisted, Vatijins, Rakshasa. Jani can be found in service for Vudran nobles. The god-hating fiends known as Ashura are common in Vudra, with the thousands of gods in land, right with religious ruins the Ashura favor using their layers. Numerous Haki catfolk also roam Vudra as wandering traders, conglomerating in roving caravans. Yes. Vudra is also heavily known for its people for being the foremost studier of occult magic in Golarion. It is said to be the birthplace of many occult traditions, and sages devote decades of understanding mysteries. Mind, body, especially emulating Iori's divine ascension. Let's talk about the people a little bit more in first talking about an important part of them, and then we'll talk about the subgroups of the Vudrani ethnicities to a small degree. Let's talk about the caste, because the caste is an important part of their people. Assigned a caste, or rarely more than one caste at birth, Vudrani culture paints a clear guide to one's future. A Vudrani rarely aspires to a path different in life, but the boundaries are less rigid than in Antiquity. Society has evolved to allow flexibility and mobility among the castes for those that crave a different path. The four primary castes that are roughly classified are artisans, priests, scholars, and warriors. So usually you're born into one. It doesn't mean you can't be outside of one, especially in more modern day, but it is still different. While broadly defined, the castes do not denote any hierarchy, though varying degrees within each caste indicate a wide range of social standards. So not one of these is above the other in the entire system. It's just sort of like you're assigned a job, you kind of go into it, and there are things within there, too. I talked about the Kellish minorities. There are some ethnic groups of Vudrani. There are many ethnic groups, but there are, and a lot of them do blur the lines together, but they are different amongst there are three most populous groups, are the Vudrani Dabala, Vudrani Batke, and Vudrani Banjo. Those are the three most populous of the subgroups of them. But there are a lot of other smaller ethnicities that are there. And again, it's if you're not from Vudra, you might not recognize the difference between them as much, because again, it's small cultural differences and regional differences. The Vudrani Dabala mostly live in the central plateau. The majority of the country's populace comes from this group. Families all cast encourage their children to practice at least one form of art, including martial arts. Today they've spread from central Vudra to populate most of the country, particularly the Western Ghats. The Vudrani Parbatke occupy the higher reaches of the northern mountains. Generally fairer skinned and stockier from generations of mountaineering, the people are seen more aloof, pragmatic than the other Vudrani. They eke out a tough existence in their mountain towns and remote pagodas. Vudrani Banjere roam the Nahiri Desert in family units with a strong equestrian culture. Expert navigators, the duskier-skinned Banjere people owe no allegiance to a single Majapada and fight fiercely to maintain their independence. They do have a love for extravagant fashion and jewelry common to most Vudrani. There's the Vudrani people. Let's talk a little about religion. This is the symbol of Iori, who, as I said, is an important deity here, but isn't the only deity. Certainly speaking, when we talk about Iori, we're like, oh yeah, this is where Iori came from, the hominid. A core god in a lot of Golarion now has spread out in a lot of places beyond Vudra. But there are a lot of other deities in Vudran Pantheon that, go beyond them. It's not embellishment to say that it's a land of 1,000 gods. There's the actual number of deities, hero gods, avatars, sects, and cults throughout the land are massive. Iori is one of the bigger ones, but the race reaches beyond the bowers of Vudra. But Vainshwaran, the crater god, is just as important to Vudrani culture as Iori. So, the three-eyed manticore riding Sardevi, patron of vengeful retribution, boasts countless temples, and the conjoined twin gods of Hela and Paizo are revered keepers of memory and destiny. The Naga goddess Ravithra has many more followers than most Vudrani realize. Beast-headed divinities are venerated throughout the land. The Moria reigns supreme among them, depicted as both male and female, with peacock's vibrant plumage framing their head. Hundreds of minor deities flourish throughout there, only known to local sects or specialized cults, such as Latitude, the god of finding lost goat herds, and Pambudavi, who protects against venomous bites and rainy-ism. Demigods and avatars also roam the country, sowing miracles and mischief in equal measure. So it is a very divine land. There's other ones I could list off that are just many Vudrani Pantheon. I would recommend you look up the Vudra Pantheon. There's some list of them, but it is only a small list, and probably some of the more major ones. But again, it's so many, there are many deities out of here. And Iori, that's the one people might know because, it's worshipped in the Inner Sea region, in TNZ, and has spread beyond Vudra, beyond Casmaron, to be a deity that's worshipped in many places. Yes, it's the only one, pretty much. There's some other ones that are worshipped outside of Vudra, but there are still a lot of them from there. It is a massive amount of deities. Alright, but that's Vudra. At least the basics of Vudra. Again, I highly recommend, if you want to dive deeper into some of these regions and some information, the Agents of Edgeworth, 60 feet under, has a big article on them. You can always look up stuff online. The Impossible. The books I recommend. Definitely a great place to look into it for. But I'm hoping this was enough for you to get a good idea of what Vudra is and slake your ability to want to maybe investigate it. It's a fascinating land. It definitely feels like a land that reflects cultures and beings and people that feel similar to a lot of, Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia kind of regions for us. I always talk about this, that there are juxtapositions between cultures we have and cultures in Golarion. It's done on purpose. But a lot of these cultures are unique, interesting, and have their own way of doing things that evolves beyond that. So we have a general idea of how the culture kind of works. We can kind of compare it, but it's something unique and interesting. And the Vudran country, with its hundreds of smaller kingdoms, is fascinating. It's why it's called the Impossible Kingdoms. It's smaller kingdoms that united together and have held for 4,000 plus years as a united group. That's fascinating. They've made it work. they somehow found this way that each of these independent Majapadas do their own thing. They kind of have that, under the Maharaja, if the Maharaja wants something to get done. But they mostly just do their own thing, and it works. Each region's just ruled on its own. Each Raj does its own thing, and it just makes it work. They've just done it. But it also means that if I visit any of these, each one is going to be different. Each one, they might have some similarities between the entire Vudran continent of culture, but it's the little bits and differences that make them all unique. And being such a huge region, as big as Avastia, means, just like we talk about Avastia, in each of these countries and places, there's unique cultures and things. You have to think about the unique cultural identity of so many smaller areas here are going to be so unique and interesting. It is a massive area that I would only hope in the future we get, even more information. So it would be lovely. And find out so much about some of these smaller Majapadas. I would love to do, similarly I've done videos on city-states and sub-region countries. I would do videos on, if we got detailed things on Majapadas, just to tell about the interesting natures of this nonsense. It's fascinating, it's interesting, and I loved learning more and more about Vudra. It's been really fun, and I hope you enjoyed too with me. And we'll leave that there, and I'll give my outro. Hey everybody, thank you for joining. Remember to show support for the channel. That could be liking, subscribing, ring the bell. But also, it could be just checking out any of my other stuff. My schedule goes up mostly on my social media, which you can check me out always. That's my Discord, my Twitter/X, my Blue Sky. And of course, I do put up my schedule over on YouTube too. That's all my uploads, which are to YouTube, which are pretty exact on the schedule. Unless there's video problems, I don't move that around. And then, of course, there is my Twitch schedule, which is a little bit more flexible. Generally speaking, gives the amount of time. For more exact times, go check out my social media. I update people there on my schedule. I give cat pics, updates on my life, kind of things like that. Not just general chatting and stuff like that. But that's a good place to see when things are kind of happening over on the Twitch side, if there's any kind of movement around and stuff like that. Remember, check out all my other stuff, and that includes Discussing Tabletop Saturday at 6. That's the big one I'm going to shout out right now. It's a talk show. We talk news of the week. We dive deep into topics related to tabletop to help people be, learn more, be better players, be better GMs, that kind of thing. We also have live plays. Currently, as of recording this, no current live plays going on. We'll get some in the future, but you can always check out the old ones. Crimson Queen, Children of Wrath, Records of Evil, Legacies of Cain. I've got a whole bunch of ones from different systems. I recommend checking out all of them. They're really fun. Mixed bag on quality. I've gotten better over time. It's called Buccaneers of the Shark and Sea. A lot of great ones to shout out. Go check those out. My live plays too. Recommend those. Is that a good thing to recommend? Shout out at the end of these videos? I say this at the end of every video because I never remember at the end of every video what I also have to shout out. And you know what? It will never change. Hope you enjoy. Anyway, I'm going to get going. Maybe hang out to track and record more. Till next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.